Hello and welcome back. So in the last lecture, we saw one bug in our application. If I go to our application and here, if I go to courses page and from there, if I select the details of a course, it is showing the details of that course. So if I go back to the courses and if I select any other course, it will show the details of that course. So when we are selecting a course from the courses page, that time it is showing the details of the course. But if I go to this URL directly to see the details of a course, if I press enter here, you will see that now the details of that course is not shown. And the reason for that is, if I open Redux Dev Toolkit, you will see that when we directly go to this URL, at that time, if we check the courses is empty array. And in the last lecture, I explained why this courses is empty array when we directly come to this URL. The reason for that is this courses array will have all the courses from the database only when we go to the courses page directly. So when we go to the courses page, you will see that now this courses state has three course objects. And here it has three course objects because since we went to the course link, what it did, it initialized the courses component. And when we are initializing the courses component, so when we are initializing the courses component and when the initialization is complete, you will notice that inside this ng on init method, we are reading all the courses from the database. So that's why when this courses component is initialized, at that time, we are reading all the courses from the database. And that's why from here, when we go to a course detail, we can see the details of that course because that course is available in this courses array. But if I directly go to this page by refreshing the page or by typing the URL in the address bar and pressing enter, at that time, since the courses component has not been rendered, it has not been initialized, it has not fetched all the courses from the database. And that's why in this case, this courses is empty array. And since the courses is empty array, there is no course in this courses state with this ID. And that's why we are not seeing any courses here in this page. Instead, we are seeing this message cannot show course detail for the selected course. But this is not the behavior which we want. What we want is whenever a user types the URL in the address bar manually with the course ID, if that course is not present in this courses state, we need to check in the database if we have any course with that course ID. And if it is there, we might want to display the details of that course. So that logic we are going to write in this lecture. And for that, first of all, I'm going to create a service. So let me close these files. For now, we don't need it. Okay. And here, let's go to course service. And in there, I'm going to create a new method. I'll call it get course by ID. Okay. And from here, we are going to make a get request to get a course object with a given ID. So for that, again, here we can say this dot HTTP. This HTTP is storing an instance of HTTP client. On that, we are going to use the get method. And to this, let's first go ahead and let's first specify the database URL. For that, again, here I'll use template literal syntax, and in that I'll use the environments object that has a Firebase configuration, and in that we have database URL. So once we have the database URL, now we want to go to the collection. So here we want to go to courses collection, and in the courses collection, we want to get that course whose ID matches the ID which we are going to receive as the parameter for this get course by ID function. So here I can again use template literal syntax, and there I'll pass the ID which we have received as the parameter. And after that, we also need to use .json. So this is the URL to which we want to make a get request and we want to get the details of a selected course, a course with a given ID. Let's save the changes here. Next, let's go to state folder, and in there let's go to courses effect.ts, and here we are going to create one more effect. So we already have this delete course effect, we have update course effect. Now I'm going to create another effect called get course by ID. And again, since it is going to store an observable, I'm going to use dollar after this. And to create an effect, as we already know, we can use create effect function. To this, we need to pass a callback function. And inside this callback function, the first thing which we are going to do is from the actions, we are going to filter a given action. And for that, I'm going to use this pipe. Inside that, I'm going to use of type. And here we are going to specify the name of the action which we want to filter here. Now, which action do we want to filter here? So here we want to filter a built-in router action. So as I have mentioned before, when we navigate from one route to another route in an NgRx application, the router store dispatches some action based on the router event which has happened. So here what I want is, once we have completely navigated to a page, at that time router navigation event happens. So here I'm going to specify router navigation, or we can also check for router navigated event. But here let me go with router navigation, or maybe let's go with router navigated. So once we have completely navigated to a page, this router navigated action will be dispatched. We want to filter for that action. And when this action is dispatched, after that, I'm going to use this filter operator to filter the URL. So here I'm going to pass a callback function. Okay. And this callback function, since this router navigated action has happened, it is going to dispatch some data. Let's store that data in a variable. Let's call it a, and this is going to be of type router navigated action. So router navigated action. Okay, and in here, what do we want to do? We want to filter for a given route. So here I'm going to return, and from this a, we have the payload. In the payload, we have router state. From that router state, we are going to get the URL, and we want to check if this URL, if it starts with, so in our case, we are showing the course detail inside slash courses slash course slash detail, right? If I go to our application, it is slash courses slash course and then the ID of the course. So there is no detail here. So let me go back and let me remove this detail. Okay, so if the URL starts with this path, what do we want to do? From that URL, we want to get the value of ID route parameter. So first of all, here we need to import this filter from RxJS to use it. Now, once we have filtered the URL, after that, I'm going to use map operator. Okay, so this map operator is again going to receive the data from this filter operator. Basically, it is going to return us the filtered route URL. So from that filtered route URL, what we are going to do is we are going to read the ID route parameter. So remember that first we are filtering that route which has this path slash courses slash course. And once we have the filtered route, from there we are going to read the ID route parameter. So here also I'm going to specify a parameter R. This here is going to receive the filtered route, and again it is going to be of type router navigated action. Okay, so from this router navigated action, now what we are going to do, we are going to get the ID of the route parameter. So again I can say return a dot payload dot router state dot, or instead of using dot, here we can use the square bracket notation. So first we want to get the params from that route. and from that params, I want to read the ID route parameter. Okay, so this is going to return us the value of the ID route parameter. We are returning it from this map operator. Now I'm going to use switch map. Okay, so you can also use exhaust map or merge map, but here I'm using switch map. This here is going to receive the returned ID which this map operator is returning. So here let me simply call it as ID. And now from within here, what we are going to do, we are going to call the course service, and in that course service we have a method get course by ID. And to this get course by ID method, we need to pass the ID of the course whose details we want to get. And let's also return from here. And we also return the observable which this pipe will return. So I'm also going to return that from here. All right. Now what this get course by ID method is going to return us, it is going to return us an observable, because as we have learned before, this get method here, it returns as an observable, and we also need to return from here. We have not returned from here. Okay, let's save the changes. So this get method is going to return us an observable. On that observable, again, I'm going to use the pipe operator, and to that pipe operator, I'm going to pass the map operator. This map operator is going to take a callback function, and what this map operator is going to receive, this map operator, it is going to receive a course object, because this get method here, it is going to return us a course object based on a given ID. So here we are going to receive a course object. So let me simply call it as course. And inside this map method, what we are going to do, we are going to create an object. So here I'll simply call it as course data. Okay. So here we are going to create an array. Now why we are creating an array? Why we are not creating an object for a single course? Because the course which we are reading from the database based on the course ID, we are going to add it to the courses array. So that's why I'm creating an array here. Okay, in here we are going to create an object. In that object, we are going to extract all the properties of the course object which we have received from the database. Okay, then for the ID, we already have the ID here. We are receiving an ID here. So for this ID only, we were searching for a course. So we already know the ID of that course. So I'm adding that ID as the property for this object. So in this object, we have all the properties from the course object, like the course title, the author of the course, the description of the course, the price of the course, and the image of the course. And to get the ID, since we are already searching for a course based on its ID, we already know the ID. So that I'm adding as one more property in this object. And now this is our proper course object. Now all we need to do from here is we need to return an action which is fetch course. Or let me check what is the action name here. So for that, let's go to courses action.ts, and the action name is read courses. So we are going to dispatch this action. So here let's say read courses, and to use it, we have already imported it. We are going to dispatch this action, and we are going to return from here. And actually, instead of read courses, we need to dispatch read courses success. Okay, so here let's dispatch read courses success. And when we are dispatching this read courses success, here we need to pass an object where we should have the courses property. And to this courses property, I'm going to assign this course data, which is again an array which has one course data. Now, here we have an error because there is mismatch in type, because here this courses is of type course array. But for this course data, we are not specifying any type, right? So let's go back to course service.ts file, and let's say from here, this method, it is going to return an observable of type course. Okay, and from here also we are going to return an observable of course. With this, let's save the changes. Let's go to course effect.ts and that error should be fixed. And that's it. So what we did in this lecture, we created a service to get a single course from the database based on course ID. And then we created an effect, and this effect will be called whenever the router navigated action is dispatched. And when the router navigated action is dispatched, the first thing which we are doing is we are filtering for a given URL. So here we want to run this effect only if the URL path contains /courses/course. Okay, otherwise we don't want to execute these logics. So if this filter method does not find the path having this /courses/course, then rest of this logic will not be executed. Rest of this logic will be executed only if the path contains /courses/course. And we are specifying this path only when we are getting the details of the course. Right, so when we are getting the details of the course, in the path we have /courses/course. So now if I go ahead and if I reload the page from here, now you will see that now we are getting the data from the database directly, and it is showing the details of that course whose ID matches this ID. And if I open Redux Dev Toolkit, there also in the courses state, you will see that this courses is assigned with one course object. So basically the Angular course. So now that issue is also fixed. If I go to courses page and from there, if I select a course, so for example, if I go to JavaScript course, I can see that course. And if I try to come to this course directly by typing the URL in the address bar and pressing enter, in that case also, I'm able to see the course detail. So this is all I wanted to cover in this lecture. If you have any questions from this lecture, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.